Welcome to the second country and setup guide, this time covering the fast growth stages of Poland. As done with Argentina, I will split this into two parts, one for setup and one for drive. Let's start with the setup. First things first, I will focus on the suspension and dampers here. The rest has very little impact and I mostly leave it on default settings. Exception being the gearing, which should go up a little to increase the top speed on those long straights. In comparison, Poland is very much the opposite of Argentina in terms of setup. Here you don't have a lot of bumps and ditches, the gravel is very smooth and compacted, it even has some tarmac sections. But also in difference to Argentina, Poland has quite some jumps. What does this mean for setup? There is no real need to compensate an uneven surface or a struggle to keep wheel contact with the road. This means you can go much stiffer on the suspension and gain a lot of cornering capability. But the difficulty lies in the fact that you still have to account for the many jumps. When jumping, you want to prevent a bottoming out of the suspension, which would result in an unstable car on the jump exit and a cumulative damage on the car. You also want to prevent bouncing back into the air once your springs release the energy. So the goal is following. Have a stiff car for the smooth gravel and tarmac. Have impact from jumps go into your suspension quickly, but let it get out slowly to prevent bouncing. A little theory for that. Imagine your springs as an energy battery. The higher your ride height and the harder the spring, the more energy it can store. But the harder it is, the more difficult it gets to get the energy into it. Now imagine your dampers as entry and exit gates for this energy. The softer the damper, the more energy it does let go in or out of the spring. To maximize the energy of the spring, I go for full ride height at the cost of a higher center of gravity. I also go for slightly stiffer springs, because I don't have to take small forces from the smooth surface, rather than the big ones with a lot of energy from jumping. But don't make them too stiff, to still allow some travel for driving mistakes at road edges. Now for the dampers. Slow bump can be quite stiff, no bumpy road here to compensate. Fast bump has to be quite loose, so the damper opens up when the force from a jump landing hits. And now you want to release this jump energy slowly from the spring, so the rebound has to be quite stiff again. As you see, I put some comparison of these settings into motion, so you see how the car gets all bouncy or bottoms out and not balanced. For the exact values you will have to experiment with the car in question as usual. I recommend the stage Borysik for setup testing. It has low tarmac and cobblestone as well as high-speed corners and jumps all inside of the shakedown part. For example values, I found this here to be quite capable for the Lancer. And I just changed the dampers, springs, ride height and final drive. Everything else is on default. To prove my point, here's the time driven with this setup. And after 3 more tries, even this. So I believe it works quite acceptable. Let's get into driving. What is most difficult here is not to control the car in general, but the precision that is required. Most corners are quite doable, but you have to get the co-pilot call in time. And this is where the sheer speed and narrow nature comes into play. This is the reason your car setup should strive to be predictable to drive, and where you should avoid bounciness over jumps. You just have no time or road space here to catch a bouncing car. Poland is a real test for your co-pilot hearing skills and translating it into the road ahead. Where in other locations you can predict many corners by look, Poland has a big load of blind crests, view-blocking roadside earth walls, narrow trees and sudden turns. If you are unsure of a turn, take out some speed. Crashing costs much more time here than just driving it 1 gear lower. Hitting a tree at 200 kph can even one-shot end your rally. Also be aware of the surface changes. Braking on sudden gravel will not work as well as on tarmac. And the rest is practice. I hope this was helpful for blitzing through Poland. Let me know which country you would like to see next. Until then, cheers!
30, 5 rechts lang und Überkuppe in 6 links lang. Achtung, mach zu 3, Überkuppe. Mach zu in Welle Sprung.